Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we are looking at some fascinating research that completely changes the way we think about weight loss. Look, we've all been there, right? You're cutting calories, you're feeling miserable, and the scale is just stubbornly refusing to budge. But according to the data we're going to look at today, this isn't some failure of your willpower. It's actually a fundamental misunderstanding of human biology. So, let's dive into the science and uncover a clear, actionable fat loss blueprint based on how our bodies actually work. Okay, let's anchor right onto a number I'm sure you have probably heard 1,000 times, 3,500. Way back in 1958, a researcher named Max Wishnowsky came up with this static mathematical rule, and man, it became so deeply ingrained in fitness culture. He stated that exactly 3,500 calories equals 1 pound of fat. So, for decades, the mainstream advice has just been this incredibly simple formula. Cut 500 calories a day from your diet, and at the end of the week, boom, you've effortlessly lost exactly 1 pound. Honestly, it sounds beautifully neat and tidy on paper, doesn't it? Which leads us to a really obvious question. Why does the math always seem to fail in real life? You know exactly what I mean. You create that perfect 500-calorie deficit, but after a couple of weeks, that nice linear weight loss just hits an absolute brick wall. You're exhausted, you're eating less than ever, and suddenly, nothing is happening. Well, the issue is that static dieting assumes you're essentially a simple calculator. You eat less, so you experience linear weight loss. But the science reveals you actually possess a dynamic metabolism. Down to a microscopic scale, your body has no idea that you're just on a diet for summer. It genuinely thinks you're in a famine. And because you are a highly evolved survival machine, your body actively fights back against starvation by literally lowering its daily burn rate. Scientists have a fancy term for this biological defense mechanism. It's called adaptive thermogenesis. Basically, it's the process where your body mathematically lowers your non-exercise movement and your metabolic rate simply to survive a caloric deficit. Think about it exactly like your smartphone. What happens when your battery drops below 20%? The screen dims, the background apps shut off, and the whole phone's performance slows down, right? Your phone switches to low battery mode to keep itself alive as long as possible. That is exactly what your metabolism does. When you drastically cut calories, your body dims the screen. You literally stop fidgeting as much, your posture slumps, and you unconsciously move less just to conserve energy. So instead of obsessing over just a few hours in the gym, the research suggests we need to completely shift our focus. Look, there are 168 hours in a week. Even if you are an absolute rock star and work out for 5 hours, what are you doing during the other 110 to 115 hours of the week that you're actually awake? This brings us to a massively important factor in fat loss, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT for short. NEAT is basically the energy you expend doing literally everything that doesn't include sleeping, eating, or formal exercise. We're talking about walking to the fridge, talking with your hands, carrying the laundry, the whole shebang. And the immediate power of NEAT is actually pretty striking. Data from the National Academy of Sports Medicine shows that for a 145-pound person, sitting at a desk doing office work burns about 102 calories an hour. But doing those exact same office duties while standing up burns 174 calories an hour. That is an extra 72 calories every single hour. Now, that might not sound like much right now, but get this. Over a 50-week work year, that simple habit of just standing translates to over 5 pounds of fat lost. To get that exact same result through formal exercise, that person would have to squeeze in 60 30-minute runs. So what happens when we try to just diet without moving? Beyond the awful psychological feeling of deprivation that makes strict diets so hard to maintain long-term, the physical consequences of severe caloric restriction without activity are actually quite alarming. Relying on diet alone creates a pretty terrifying reality. While the scale might initially drop, which feels great, for every single pound you lose, up to 69% of it is fat, but a massive 31% is precious metabolism-boosting muscle tissue. This right here is exactly what causes that skinny fat phenomenon. And remember, as we age, we naturally lose muscle anyway. Women can lose up to 23% and men up to 22% of their muscle mass between the ages of 30 and 70. Dieting without moving aggressively accelerates this loss. You are literally burning away the metabolic engine that keeps you healthy. Now contrast that with the data on combining a manageable diet with resistance training. Things like lifting weights, using machines, or even just doing body weight exercises. It completely flips the script. By signaling to your body that your muscle is actively needed for survival, you preserve almost all of your existing muscle mass. A staggering 97% of your weight loss now comes strictly from stored body fat, with only a tiny 3% coming from muscle. This keeps you fit, functional, and crucially, it prevents your metabolism from crashing into that dreaded low battery mode. Bringing this all together, the research offers a remarkably simple blueprint to boost your NEAT, without ever stepping foot in a gym if you don't want to. Number 1, wash your car by hand this weekend instead of just sitting in the drive-thru. Number 2, pace the sidelines at your kids' games or just pace the room while you're taking a phone call. Number 3, carry your groceries to the car instead of lazily pushing a cart. And number 4, just stand up for 5 to 10-minute increments while you work or watch TV. Integrating these tiny little movements adds up incredibly fast. Finding creative ways to burn just 200 extra NEAT calories each day translates to a massive 20 pounds of weight loss in a single year. And you do it without starving yourself, without breaking a sweat, and without triggering metabolic adaptation. For a little context here, to lose those same 10 to 20 pounds through traditional exercise, you'd need roughly 120 exhausting 30-minute cardio sessions. Movement really is medicine, and ordinary everyday movement is a highly effective, scientifically backed fat loss tool. So, we've bypassed the calorie myth, we've explored exactly how to protect your metabolism with NEAT, and we've highlighted the massive importance of resistance training. But this leaves us with one really big question based on the data. How much protein does your newly preserved muscle actually need to survive, recover, and keep that metabolic engine running efficiently? Well, that is exactly what we are going to unpack in our next explainer. I'll see you there.